So that's the feet. Then you have from here to here would be the hock, and from here to here would be the hock. Ham hocks. Hocks would be smoked, cured, and then used to flavor soups, greens, beans, all different types of things. Throw a ham hock into a split pea soup, let it simmer for hours and hours, and then you take it out when it's all soft. You pull the meat out, you chop it up, you add it back into the soup for those little bits of ham. All right, it adds that nice smoky hammy flavor. Then after you take off well, you can leave the hock on. In this case, we'll make the full ham with the hock. We'll take the ham off here between the chine bone and the H bone here, right in the middle, cut at a slight angle. That's going to be our ham from there to there. And that's very much the American style of cutting. If we talk about foreign styles of cutting, this is a Serrano ham from Spain. The Serrano is from this same area. You can see there's the H-bone, right? But they left the sirloin on. Rather than cutting it off here, they left the entire sirloin on. So they cut pork a little bit differently in other places. And some of our artisan butchers here are doing that as well. I have a video of Tom Milan down at the Meat Hook down in Brooklyn. He cuts it that way. He cuts it long. And then he makes extra long roasts out of it and different things. Or sells it as a curing ham to some of his customers. All right, so there it is. Traditional U.S. It's going to be right through the middle of the sirloin. That sirloin, that specific piece, can also be cured off of a large ham like this. This is called Speck, Speck Alto Adige. This product is basically the sirloin section of the pig. If you look at the little map of Italy on here, it's marked in the left top right corner, which would be the north and eastern section of Italy, up in the Dolomites and in the Alpine regions. They would make this there. It's the southern Tyrol. The northern Tyrol would be across the border into Austria, and the Austrians all make this as well. And so Speck is a common thing. My grandfather made Speck. He always had it hanging in the back of the smokehouse. You would go out and slice a little piece off and fry it up, or you'd slice it like paper thin and just eat it the way it was. Right? You also have Speck being made across the border into Austria, Romania. They all would make their own version of Speck. And further west, when you get to the southern parts of Germany and all the way even into Switzerland, you would see Speck. All right, and they all say theirs is the best. Mine is better than yours. Let's have a war. All right. It's seasoned and pressed and salted and pressed for a long period of time, excluding a lot of the water. And it's taken out and then it's smoked heavily and then sliced very, very thin. This is a commercial product. I got a better one at home that I made, but I didn't bring it. I'm sorry.
It's still good.
Huh?
It's still good either way.
It's good. So that's the ham, and then from here to here is going to be the loin. All right, the loin starts here and ends all the way at the first rib. So it's different than all of the other loins that we've seen. Typically, the beef loin would have ended between the 12th and 13th, the veal loin between the 11th and 12th. But in this case, the pork loin is the entire back. It's the loin and the rack together. So that's all pork loin from one end to the other. All right? And then we get to the front of the animal. The top half, this whole piece is called the pork shoulder. The top half is going to be called the Boston butt, and the bottom half is going to be called the picnic. So you got ham, loin, Boston butt, picnic. And then in pork, this section has a lot of value. That's the pork belly. It's the belly and the spare ribs. So they include that as a kind of extra primal. So ham, loin, Boston butt, picnic, belly. 5 different primals. Got all those? Very good. So we're going to break them down into those parts today. And then on Monday, we're going to break down the Boston butt, and we're going to break down the loin. That's going to be our project on Monday. All right? So today we're not going to do any production. And that's that. So let's get to it. The foot comes off here. Make a circular cut around. Saw it through. You let the saw do the work, it goes through easy. Now, if we cut this further, instead of cutting through that meat, if we cut it further up here, and we actually went through the joint, instead of being called a hock here, that would be called a pork shank. All right, and you can buy pork shanks as an individual thing without the skin on. What would you do with a pork shank? What would you do with a veal shank? You would make, you just said it, ossobuco. So you would make pork ossobuco. All right, that would be this without the skin on it. You pull that down, and you have a pork ossobuco. All right, you wouldn't serve it with the skin on though. But they do sell that. That's popular today. To make the zampone, you just peel this down. You see how it's coming right down? Like peeling down a sock. You unroll the whole thing, but they ruined it because they went through the gambrel where they hung the pig. That ruins this one, so you'd have to use the front one. And you put a cut in that one, so that's ruined too, really. They can't have any cuts in them if you're going to do a zampone. All right, but you understand pork ossobuco? Mm-hmm. Good. Pull your socks up. Now we're going to take this one, cut through like so, make a circular cut around, take this foot off. Runs it with the saw. You want to do it?
Sure.
All right, just let the saw do the work. Don't hit the table. You got to hold the thing like the way it's supposed to be held. Let the saw do it. Just let it slide. There you go.
No more grease.
All right, so just gotta let the saw do the work. I cut a lot of wood by hand. You ever cut wood by hand?
No.
That's good. Don't do it. It's ridiculous. It's tedious. What do you got chainsaws?
It takes forever.
Why would I cut wood by hand?
Why did I cut wood?
Because you never dance.
Well, when you make a poacher's mountain bike trail through the middle of the woods that you're not supposed to be in, you can't drag a chainsaw in there.
What?
What?
I don't know if he's joking.
That's a what?
Hawk.
A ham hock. What would you do with a ham hock?
Soup.
You put it in soup, right? If you cure it and then smoke it, then you can put it in soup for flavor. Right? That's nice. That's a good size hock too. Sometimes they're dinky, small ones. This is a good size one. Has some substance to it. I mean, also in like an old school German restaurant, they would roast that and they would serve like roasted Eisbein or Schweinehaxe, and it would be like a whole plate with this and sausages and potatoes and sauerkraut and all kinds of stuff together. And you'd have all that. This would be all crispy on the outside and eat it off of there. It's like a rustic plate. This is a sweetbread. They don't really save them in pork, but that's what it looks like in pork. Thymus gland. And there's a little
Could you
blood
eat that the same
trickle.
way that you do?
I'd never have. I guess. I've never done it. Never eaten it. Now, off the front of this, traditionally there'd be an extra flap, a flap that would come out around, and that flap would be the jowl. And actually the jowl goes back to the front of the pig. In Italy, they would take the jowl like this in its full form, and they would cure it. Right? Cure it with basically the same cure that you would use for a pancetta, a garlic, salty cure, and then you would let it hang for about 3 weeks, maybe a month, maybe even longer, and you would have what you call guanciale. Guanciale is a thing where you thin slice it. It's like a jowl bacon. You see that streak of lean in the middle and then fat on both sides. That's what a jowl bacon looks like. It's like if you want Charlie to leave. Come on, Charlie.
It's a joke.
It's okay. You don't have to laugh. It's Saturday.
They weren't getting it.
They don't know how to. How do you say guanciale? Talk about slow.
It's Saturday, we have an excuse.
Jeez.
It was painful.
Come on, Charlie.
I just tried. I just from the fire alarm.
Someday you will see guanciale on a menu and you'll go,
I could eat like that.
you'll tell that joke to the people that are around you and they'll all go, oh my God, that's terrible. And you'll get a chuckle.
They suck at pancakes.
All right, now, but it's a valuable piece. I've seen jowl bacon or guanciale served a lot, like pancetta, thin slice. You can eat it almost like an appetizer item. All right. Next, we'll take off the ham. We'll start from here, work our way forward. Taking down the ham, we pull down the flank steak. In the pig, when you see this, here's a gland. When you see the glands, and the glands are nice and clear like that, they're grayish, pinkish. That means that the animal is very healthy. All right. If they're black, or you see like any spots of green in there, that usually means it's an infection. It's inflamed and it's infected. So you wouldn't want that. Usually it wouldn't pass inspection, but sometimes they get through.
Could you talk to your provider and if it's sick?
If it's sick, I'd call them up and say, just sell them a crack. Yes, I would take a picture with my phone. Well, they need to know, especially if they're not using antibiotics or anything and their pigs are sick. You know, something's wrong there, so they need to focus. I cut through the pelvic bone, creating the H bone and the hip bone again, just like back when we did beef.
Jeff, do you need trays?
We do need trays. Tray bien would be nice. Very nice. Tray bien. You got all the jokes today. Well, it's Saturday. I usually go to parents. Oh, now what you do that for? Oh, now you're paying too. Look at pen.
Spice?
Yeah, where'd you get that?
At a fundraiser for one of the events.
I don't know, I got one. Because someone left it here. I'm just wondering where they came from. We just need 3. Not too much marbling. You know? Marbling is a genetic thing. Obviously, this pig ate really well, but it doesn't get the marbling that I would have wanted.
What would you grade this one as?
There is no grade in pork. What's the grade in pork?
Acceptable,
There's no grade in pork. What's the grade in pork? There's no grade in pork. What's the yield grade for veal?
There is no yield grade.
There is no yield grade for veal. Same thing here. So pork is not graded like beef or veal. There is no prime. There is no choice. There is no select. There's only company name brand. There is a USDA guideline, 1, 2, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 in utility, but that refers to the length of the loin, the thickness of the fat bag. It's got nothing to do with marbling. So it's not really a great indicator of quality. It's a great indicator of uniformity. So a company would use that guide to say, All right, this pig is uniform enough for us to turn it into market forms, but it's not a quality factor, all right? So, I would look at this and say, it's average, but it's no quality grade. It's average because it doesn't have enough marbling. All right, now I'm going to cut right between the first and second rib. A lot of the pork companies are cutting even further up, but I'm trying to recreate what they do. I would most likely, if I was cutting this for myself, I would cut in about 3 ribs in, because that way I'm going to miss the blade bone. I'm going to have a full pork shoulder without cutting into the shoulder at all. So you'll see sometimes they'll chop the shoulder. But I'm trying to recreate what you see in the industry, so we're doing pretty good. There's a little blade bone in there. So this is going to be the full shoulder with the neck bone on. We'll get to that in a moment. And first we're going to get to this. See, the trouble is this pig was on a rack that was too short for it, so it hit bottom and it bent the rib cage, and then it kind of sets up that way. If it's really fresh, it kind of sets a little bit, so it's kind of a little bent. Which is, I mean, not bad. I'll be able to cut it nice, but it's best when they're nice and flat. I cut from right here by the tenderloin, right by the sirloin. I make a cut in like so, and I hit this rib cage right here, and then cut across all these ribs like that. All right? What does this become? That becomes spare ribs. Cut between the belly and the loin. I'll cut it a little bit wide too. Make the belly a little bit bigger. Now this is the belly. On the inner part of the belly you have what? Spare ribs. Now normally when I cut I try to get as close to the bone as possible, right? This is the only day that you'll see me do a bad job. Right? Why? Well, it's Saturday, I just don't feel like doing this. No. Why? Why would I do a bad job?
Because you want to leave meat on it.
Because I want to leave some meat on the bones. Exactly. Because these bones become what? The ribs, right. So I'm cutting them a little bit wide. Trying not to cut into the bone structure at all. Just kind of cutting through. They're nice meaty ribs. All right? So there's the belly, and these are the spare ribs. Now you can buy full rack spare ribs just like this. That's a full rack rib, belly rib. And you can buy it without this little brisket bone. They sell it with this part cut off, which that was really difficult to do. Definitely use somebody else's knife. And then they also make what's called St. Louis ribs. And the St. Louis rib is when we cut this square. There's a little soft spot right there. You cut off the entire brisket bone, and making a much more square and even rib structure. All right, that's called St. Louis ribs. St. Louis ribs are popular because they're nice and uniform. Regular spare ribs are popular because they have that nice kind of chunky meaty section along the bottom, which I really kind of like. All right, so it's up to you to decide which kind of ribs you use. But that is full rack ribs, and then that trimmed would be St. Louis ribs. All right, St. Louis trimmed ribs. This is the belly. Oh, well, let's talk about ribs just for one more second. You see this rib cage? That is where you get your baby back ribs, all right?